There have been teams who have struggled both on the field with their performance and off the field financially. But what if the organization was so desperate that they were willing to do something as crazy as switch their franchise with one another? And that's going to be today's topic on how the Eagles and Steelers switched franchises back in 1941. The Eagles and Steelers are franchises that have quite a bit in common. The obvious one is that both teams are from the state of Pennsylvania. But another common theme is their journey in the NFL. Both started in 1933. Both lost to the New York Giants in their first ever game and started off playing in the same division. But more importantly, they were struggling franchises, both combining for 43 wins in total from 1933 to 40, which is an average of 5 wins. So by no means were they title contenders. In comes Bert Bell, who was the founding man for the Eagles and maybe the most influential person in the history of the NFL. Around this time, he was both the general manager and coach of the Eagles, and on top of the Eagles' poor play, they were also struggling financially. Bell was not able to hire any secretaries, any equipment managers, basically running the franchise single-handedly. A list of other things Bell did was sell tickets at a discount price and sometimes give away tickets for free. Bell would also schedule away games in larger stadiums so he could make his 40% discount pay worthwhile. But to top it all off, Bell would sell his best player, Dave Schmuckler, to the Detroit Lions for $5,000. Even though we've seen similar things throughout the course of NFL history, like the Herschel Walker trade, it takes a lot of guts for an NFL coach to trade his best player. Even in today's